I stood alone in my gorgeous new kitchen, staring at 30 untouched appetizer platters and feeling my heart shatter into pieces. After saving for 7 years, I'd finally bought my dream house and planned the perfect housewarming party. My entire family promised they'd come celebrate this massive milestone with me. Instead, they all ditched me to go see my sister Madison's brand new Mercedes convertible across town. Just as I reached to turn off the decorative lights I'd spent hours hanging, my phone rang. Dad's voice was ice cold. "Dorothy, we need to talk right now." The silence in my craftsman-style bungalow felt deafening as I stared at the elaborate spread of food I'd ordered from 3 different Portland caterers. 7 years of 60-hour work weeks flashed through my mind. 7 years of living in that cramped studio apartment on Oak Street eating ramen noodles for dinner, while my coworkers grabbed expensive lunches downtown. 7 years of skipping every vacation, every concert, every weekend trip to save every single penny for this moment. I'd worked at 3 different marketing firms during those years, climbing from junior account coordinator to senior marketing manager, always with one goal burning in my chest: owning my own home. While my friends spent their 20s traveling Europe and buying designer clothes, I clipped coupons and drove my beat-up Honda Civic until the engine practically wheezed for mercy. The house hunt alone took 8 months. I must have toured 60 properties before finding this perfect 2-bedroom bungalow in the Hawthorne district. Original hardwood floors restored 1920s, fixtures a kitchen island I'd dreamed about since college, and a backyard big enough for the vegetable garden I'd planned for years. The mortgage application process felt like performing surgery on my financial life. But when I finally held those keys 3 weeks ago, I cried right there in the realtor's office. My family dynamics had always been complicated, but I thought achieving home ownership would finally earn me some recognition. My parents, Robert and Carol, raised me and my sister Madison with completely different expectations. As the eldest daughter, I learned early that responsibility meant independence, meant survival. Madison, 3 years younger, somehow learned that charm meant support, meant everything would work out fine. Robert worked as a mid-level manager at a lumber company while Carol taught elementary school. Neither made huge salaries, but they always seemed to find money for Madison's needs while encouraging my self-reliance. Madison bounced between part-time jobs at boutiques and coffee shops, never staying anywhere longer than 8 months, always claiming she needed time to find herself artistically. Planning this housewarming party consumed 3 weeks of my life. I ordered custom invitations from a local print shop featuring watercolor drawings of my house's distinctive front porch. I hired Pacific Catering to prepare Mediterranean appetizers, Northwest salmon dishes, and local cheese boards that would feed 25 people comfortably. I bought new furniture for the living room, hung string lights throughout the dining area, and created a photo wall showcasing my entire home-buying journey from apartment hunting to closing day. The playlist took me 4 hours to perfect, mixing everyone's favorite genres from Dad's classic rock to Madison's indie pop. I personally called each family member 2 weeks ago to confirm attendance: my parents, Madison, Uncle Frank, and Aunt Jennifer from Lake Oswego, and cousins Brian and Sarah from Beaverton. Everyone enthusiastically promised they'd be here at 6 o'clock sharp. Yesterday morning, I took a personal day from work to receive the catered food, arrange fresh flowers in every room, and set up a small bar cart with local wines and craft beers. I even bought a new sundress for the occasion, something cheerful and welcoming in soft yellow cotton that made me feel confident and proud. Today, I arrived at my house by 5:30, checking every detail one final time. The appetizers looked perfect, arranged on my grandmother's vintage platters. The flowers added exactly the right touch of warmth to each room. I changed into my yellow dress, applied lipstick carefully, and positioned myself by the front window to watch for arriving cars. 6 o'clock arrived with autumn rain pattering against the windows. No cars in my driveway. 6:15 brought heavier rain and empty silence. By 6:30, anxiety started gnawing at my stomach as I checked my phone for messages. 6:45 brought the first excuse text from Mom. "Running a bit late, honey. Traffic is terrible downtown." More texts trickled in over the next 30 minutes. Dad claimed his truck wouldn't start immediately. Aunt Jennifer mentioned unexpected work drama. Brian said he was stuck helping Sarah with some computer problem. Madison never responded at all, which wasn't unusual since she rarely checked messages promptly. By 7:15, I couldn't ignore the growing dread anymore. I opened Instagram on my phone and navigated to Madison's profile, hoping maybe she'd posted about being stuck somewhere. Instead, I found a live story that made my blood freeze in my veins. There was my entire family gathered in a circle around Madison's shining silver Mercedes convertible, parked in Mom and Dad's driveway. Everyone held champagne glasses filled with golden liquid, their faces glowing with excitement and joy. Mom had her arm around Madison's shoulders. Dad was actually smiling as he toasted something I couldn't hear. Uncle Frank, Aunt Jennifer, Brian, and Sarah all stood around the car like it was some kind of sacred altar. Madison's caption read, "Family celebration for my gorgeous new baby. Nothing beats having everyone you love together for life's special moments. So grateful for this amazing support system." I stared at that screen until my hands started shaking. They hadn't forgotten about my party. They hadn't gotten stuck in traffic or dealt with emergencies. They had deliberately planned a competing celebration, choosing to honor Madison's car purchase instead of my house purchase. They had looked at their calendars, seen both events, and decided which daughter deserved their presents. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and walked through my beautiful, empty house. Every room I decorated with such care now felt like a monument to my own foolishness. How could I have been naive enough to believe this time would be different? How could I have thought that buying a house would finally make me worthy of their attention and pride? The worst part wasn't just the absence, it was the deliberate choice. They could have split their time between both celebrations. They could have come to my party first and gone to see Madison's car afterward. Instead, they chose to honor her achievement while completely dismissing mine. My phone buzzed with an incoming call just as I started blowing out the candles I'd lit throughout the living room. Dad's name appeared on the screen, and I answered with a mix of hope and dread. Dorothy. His voice carried that familiar, stern tone he used when he was about to deliver unwelcome news. "We need to talk immediately. Are you coming to the party?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from the background noise of multiple conversations and clinking glasses. Something more important came up tonight. We're celebrating Madison's achievement, and frankly, your timing couldn't have been worse. My stomach dropped. "My timing, Dad, I sent invitations 3 weeks ago. You all confirmed you were coming." "Well, Madison just got this beautiful car and the family felt it was important to show our support. You should understand that her success needs encouragement right now." "What about my success? I bought a house, Dad. I've been working toward this for 7 years. Robert sighed heavily into the phone. "Dorothy, you're perfectly capable of handling things on your own. You always have been. Madison needs family support much more than you do right now." The casual dismissal in his voice hit me like a slap. "I'll be over in 30 minutes, he continued. "We should discuss your attitude about this situation." He hung up before I could respond. I stood in my kitchen holding a silent phone trying to process what had just happened. My father had called to scold me for having poor timing about my own housewarming party. He was driving over to lecture me about my attitude while the rest of my family continued celebrating Madison's car. 35 minutes later, headlights swept across my front windows. I watched Dad climb out of his pickup truck and walk up my front steps without any urgency or enthusiasm. When I opened the door, he barely glanced at the welcoming entryway I'd spent hours perfecting. "Nice place," he said flatly, stepping inside and immediately focusing on practical concerns. "Heating bills are going to be expensive in a house this size. Property taxes probably cost more than your old rent." I had imagined this moment so many times. I'd pictured Dad walking through my house with pride, maybe commenting on the original hardwood floors or the restored kitchen cabinets. Instead, he moved through each room, pointing out potential problems and unnecessary expenses. "This furniture looks brand new," he observed, running his hand along my sofa's fabric. "Could have saved money buying used pieces until you're more established." Dad, I've been planning this purchase for years. I can afford the furniture. That's exactly the problem, Dorothy. You're so focused on showing off that you're not thinking practically. He gestured around my living room with obvious disapproval. All this fancy food, expensive decorations, new furniture. What are you trying to prove? I'm not trying to prove anything. I wanted to celebrate buying my first house with my family. Robert shook his head and settled into my armchair without invitation. The timing was selfish, Dorothy. Madison gets her first nice car, and suddenly you decide to throw some elaborate party the same weekend. It looks like you're trying to upstage your sister. The accusation felt so backwards I could barely form words. Dad, I planned this party weeks ago. Everyone knew about it. If Madison wanted to celebrate her car, she could have picked any other weekend. Madison didn't plan anything. We saw her car and decided spontaneously that it deserved recognition. She works hard at that boutique, and this purchase represents real progress for her. What about my progress? I've been working 3 times as many hours as Madison for the past 7 years. I saved $50,000 for this down payment while living in a tiny apartment. How is that less worthy of celebration? Dad's expression grew colder. You've always been capable of taking care of yourself, Dorothy. Madison needs more support and encouragement. She's still figuring things out while you seem to have everything under control. Having everything under control doesn't mean I don't deserve support from my own family. Support. Robert leaned forward with a condescending look. Dorothy, you bought a house that's too big for one person, threw an expensive party with fancy catered food, and expected everyone to drop everything to come admire your possessions. That's not asking for support. That's demanding attention. Each word felt like a physical blow. My father was sitting in my beautiful living room, surrounded by evidence of years of hard work and careful planning, and all he could see was selfishness and showing off. Madison never has to worry about timing or consideration, I said quietly. She got a new car and immediately the whole family rushed over to celebrate. Nobody asked if it was convenient or if it conflicted with other plans. Madison doesn't make demands the way you do. She's grateful for whatever support she receives, while you seem to expect special treatment. Special treatment, Dad. This is the first time I've ever asked the family to celebrate anything I've accomplished. Madison gets praised for keeping a job for 3 months. I work for 7 years to buy a house, and I'm being selfish. Robert stood up abruptly, clearly done with the conversation. Your attitude is exactly the problem, Dorothy. You're keeping score, competing with your sister, and making everything about yourself. As he walked toward the front door, he paused and delivered the final blow without even looking at me. By the way, your mother and I co-signed Madison's car loan because she needed family support to make this purchase happen. Sometimes, family means helping each other achieve important goals. The front door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone with the devastating realization that my parents had helped finance Madison's Mercedes while I struggled to save every penny for my house down payment on my own. For years, I'd asked them for small loans to help with closing costs or moving expenses, and they'd always explain that I was too responsible and capable to need financial assistance. But Madison got a co-signed car loan and a family celebration on the same night. After Dad left, I walked through my house, turning off lights and putting away food that would never be eaten. The silence felt different now, not just lonely, but loaded with the weight of finally understanding something I'd been blind to my entire life. I sat on my couch, surrounded by untouched appetizer platters, and started remembering incidents I'd dismissed or rationalized over the years. When Madison started college, she received a brand new MacBook Pro, a printer, and a complete dorm room setup, including bedding decorations and a mini refrigerator. When I started college 3 years earlier, I got a refurbished laptop from Craigslist and a stern lecture about learning financial responsibility through working part-time jobs. Spring break during my sophomore year, I watched Madison post pictures from Cancun beaches and poolside cocktails. When I asked Mom how Madison could afford such an expensive trip, she explained that Madison needed to experience life and build confidence through travel. I spent that same spring break working double shifts at a campus bookstore to pay for textbooks. Madison crashed her first car 3 months after getting her license texting while driving through a parking lot and hitting a concrete barrier. 2 days later, Dad took her shopping for a replacement vehicle. When I had a minor fender bender 6 months after getting my license, I spent the next half year taking buses and riding my bike because I needed to learn the consequences of careless driving. The financial disparity became clearer as I mentally calculated everything. Madison's college tuition, partially paid by our parents, when her financial aid fell short. Her apartment deposits when she moved between rentals every 8 months. Her credit card payments when shopping sprees exceeded her boutique income. Her car insurance still paid through the family plan despite her being 25 years old. Meanwhile, I'd been completely financially independent since age 21. I paid my own college loans, my own apartment deposits, my own car insurance, my own everything. When I asked for help with my house down payment last year, Mom explained that giving me money would be enabling dependency and preventing me from experiencing the pride of complete self-reliance. I started seeing the pattern everywhere. Family dinners always revolved around Madison's latest drama or adventure. When she lost jobs, the family provided sympathy and encouragement. When I got promotions, the conversations quickly shifted to other topics. Madison's achievements received celebration and support. My achievements received brief acknowledgement and reminders not to become too proud. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this favoritism had shaped my entire personality. I'd become fiercely independent because I learned early that asking for help meant being told I should handle things myself. I worked harder than necessary because I thought exceptional performance might finally earn me the support and recognition Madison received effortlessly. Around 9:30, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I found Uncle Frank standing on my porch, holding a bottle of wine and looking uncomfortable. "Hi, Dorothy. I brought this for your party," he said, stepping inside and glancing around at the obvious signs of a celebration that never happened. "Thanks, Uncle Frank. Though as you can see, the party was pretty much canceled." Frank winced and handed me the wine. "I left Madison's thing early. Felt weird being there knowing you were over here alone." We sat in my living room and Frank poured wine into 2 glasses from my abandoned bar cart. After a few minutes of awkward small talk, he started fidgeting with obvious discomfort. "Dorothy, I need to tell you something that's been bothering me all evening." I braced myself for another disappointing revelation. "That car celebration tonight wasn't spontaneous. We've been planning it for 3 weeks." My wine glass stopped halfway to my lips. 3 weeks. "Your mom suggested it in the family group chat right after you sent your housewarming invitations. She said Madison had been feeling overshadowed lately and needed something special to boost her confidence." "There's a family group chat?" I asked slowly. Frank's face flushed red. "Oh, I thought you knew. It's mostly your parents, Madison, Jennifer, and me. We use it to coordinate gatherings and share news." "I'm not in this family group chat." "Well, it's usually just logistical stuff," Frank said weakly, but his expression suggested otherwise. "What did Mom say exactly about the car celebration?" Frank stared into his wine glass. "She suggested we plan something special for Madison the same weekend as your party to see which event would draw more family attendance. She said you'd been getting too big for your britches since buying the house and needed to learn that family doesn't revolve around material possessions." The room started spinning slightly. She deliberately planned a competing event. Madison specifically requested that weekend. She said it would be funny to see whether people chose your housewarming or her car celebration. Frank looked miserable. "I'm sorry, Dorothy. I should have said something earlier." I felt sick to my stomach. So tonight was essentially a test to see whether the family would choose Madison or me. "Carol thought you needed to be brought down a peg. She's been telling everyone you've become pretentious since buying the house, constantly talking about mortgage payments and property taxes and decorating choices." I talked about buying a house because it was the biggest accomplishment of my life. I was excited. Frank pulled out his phone reluctantly. "There's more. I probably shouldn't show you this, but you deserve to know what you're dealing with." He opened a group chat called Family Updates and showed me screenshots of messages from the past month. Mom had written, "Dorothy's constant house talk is getting exhausting. She acts like she's the first person who ever bought property." Dad had added, "Someone needs to remind her that homeownership doesn't make you better than everyone else." Madison had contributed multiple messages mocking my excitement about mortgage payments, property taxes, and home improvements. "Can we plan something the same weekend as her house party? I'm so tired of everything revolving around Dorothy's precious investment." The final screenshot showed a message from Mom sent just yesterday. "Tomorrow will be good for Dorothy's character development. She needs to learn that family relationships aren't about impressing people with expensive purchases." I stared at Frank's phone screen until the words blurred together. My entire family had been discussing my personality flaws and planning my humiliation for weeks. They hadn't skipped my housewarming party because of conflicting obligations. They had deliberately chosen to hurt me as a form of character correction. "Frank, they've been planning to exclude me from future family events, too." He nodded grimly. "Christmas is going to be at Jennifer's house this year. Carol suggested rotating holidays away from your place because it's too small for proper family gatherings, and you need to learn about priorities that aren't related to showing off your house." I handed Frank's phone back to him and sat in stunned silence. The housewarming party disaster wasn't an isolated incident of poor timing or conflicting priorities. It was part of a coordinated campaign to humble me for the crime of being proud of my accomplishments. The next morning, I woke up in my guest bedroom because sleeping in my master bedroom felt too overwhelming. Everything about my house reminded me of the excitement I'd felt just 24 hours ago. Now that excitement seemed naive and pathetic. I called in sick to work and spent the day investigating exactly how deep this family betrayal went. I started by creating a fake Instagram account using a variation of my college roommate's name and adding family members who might have private posts about my situation. Within an hour, I discovered that Aunt Jennifer had posted a series of Instagram stories last night, mocking my party decorations. She'd taken screenshots from my social media posts showing the string lights, flower arrangements, and food preparation, then added commentary, like, "When you try too hard to impress people, and someone's feeling very fancy with their catered appetizers." Brian had shared Jennifer's stories to his own account with additional jokes about my desperate need for validation and putting on airs. Sarah posted a picture of Madison's Mercedes with the caption, "Finally someone who knows how to celebrate achievements without being obnoxious about it." The cruelest discovery came when I found Madison's private Twitter account. She'd been live tweeting the car celebration last night, describing how satisfying it felt to finally get more family attention than the perfect daughter who thinks she's better than everyone else. She'd posted photos of our parents laughing and toasting her car with comments like, "Look how happy they are when they're not pretending to care about Dorothy's boring adult responsibilities." I spent the afternoon calling family members under the pretense of checking in after last night's events, but really trying to understand how many people were involved in the deliberate exclusion plan. Cousin Sarah answered on the third ring, and her voice immediately sounded guilty. "Oh, hi, Dorothy. How are you feeling today?" "I'm fine, Sarah. I was calling to see how Madison's car celebration went after I talked to Dad." "It was nice," Sarah said carefully. "Madison seemed really happy with all the attention. I was thinking about what Uncle Frank mentioned about the family group chat. It sounds like there was more planning involved than I initially realized." Sarah's silence stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, she sighed deeply. "Dorothy, I need to be honest with you. I never actually intended to come to your housewarming party." My heart sank even though I'd been preparing myself for this kind of revelation. "Aunt Jennifer told all of us that you'd been becoming insufferable since buying the house. She said you constantly bragged about mortgage payments and decorating choices, and the party was just another way for you to show off and make everyone else feel inadequate." "Sarah, I was excited about the biggest purchase of my life. I talked about it because it mattered to me." "I know that now, but at the time we all thought you were being pretentious. Jennifer said the family needed to teach you some humility before you became too big for your britches." "How long have you all been planning Madison's car party?" "Over a month," Sarah admitted. Madison has had that car for 3 weeks, but she kept it secret so we could plan the perfect timing. She specifically wanted the celebration on your housewarming weekend to put you in your place. A month, Sarah. You've all been planning this for a month. Your mom said you needed to learn that success doesn't make you better than your family. She thought competing events would help you develop more humility and consideration for other people's feelings. I felt physically ill. What about my feelings? Did anyone consider how this would affect me? Well, you're always so strong and independent. Everyone figured you could handle disappointment better than Madison could handle being overshadowed by your house purchase. The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, with Sarah revealing more details about the family's discussions. Mom had been telling people at my workplace embarrassing stories about my obsession with homeownership. She'd called Linda in HR, who was Carol's friend from their book club, and shared details about my unhealthy fixation on property taxes and home improvement projects. After hanging up with Sarah, I called Linda directly to assess potential damage to my professional reputation. "Oh, Dorothy." Linda sounded surprised to hear from me. "Your mother mentioned you've been under a lot of stress lately with the new house and everything." "What exactly did she tell you?" Linda's voice became more careful. "She was concerned about your work-life balance. Something about you staying late to research mortgage rates and spending lunch breaks looking at furniture websites." I closed my eyes and tried to remain calm. "Linda, I bought my first house recently. Of course I was spending time on house-related research. That's normal behavior for new homeowners." "Oh," Linda said slowly, "your mother made it sound more compulsive, like you couldn't focus on anything else." "My work performance hasn't suffered at all. I've met every deadline and exceeded my quarterly goals." "That's absolutely true," Linda agreed. "Your performance has been excellent. I guess I misunderstood your mother's concerns." After ending that call, I realized Mom had been actively trying to damage my professional reputation by portraying my excitement about homeownership as unhealthy obsession. She'd called my workplace to plant seeds of concern about my mental state and work performance. The investigation continued throughout the afternoon. I discovered that Madison had recorded videos of family members mocking my party preparations and shared them in private group chats. Brian and Sarah had been forwarding screenshots of my excited social media posts about house projects, adding commentary about my desperate need for attention. The most devastating discovery came when I found text messages between my parents discussing their long-term plans. Dad had written, "Dorothy's independence is becoming arrogance. She needs to learn that family relationships aren't about individual achievements." Mom had responded, "The house thing is making her impossible. She talks about property values and renovation plans like she's some real estate expert. We need to remind her that material possessions don't make you better than other people." Then I found the message that made me feel physically sick. "We've been thinking about selling this house and moving to a smaller place for retirement. We should probably give Dorothy's childhood home to Madison as a wedding gift someday. Madison needs stability more than Dorothy needs sentimental value." My parents were planning to give my childhood home to Madison without ever offering it to me. They viewed Madison as deserving of family property while seeing me as too independent to need or appreciate such a gesture. The final piece of evidence came from a recorded phone conversation Frank had shared with me. Mom and Dad were discussing Christmas plans with Mom, suggesting they exclude me from major family celebrations for my own character development. "Dorothy needs to learn that family isn't about showing off your accomplishments," Mom's voice said clearly. "Maybe missing a few gatherings will help her realize that relationships matter more than property ownership and career success." Dad had agreed enthusiastically. "She's become too focused on impressing people instead of connecting with people. Some time alone might help her develop better priorities." They were planning to isolate me from family events as a form of therapy for my supposed character flaws. In their minds, my excitement about buying a house revealed deep personality problems that required correction through exclusion and humiliation. By evening, I had compiled overwhelming evidence that my family's behavior wasn't accidental or spontaneous. They had spent weeks planning a coordinated campaign to humble me, damage my relationships, and teach me lessons about humility that they felt I needed to learn. The housewarming party disaster was just the beginning of a broader plan to reshape my personality through systematic exclusion and public embarrassment. That evening, while I sat surrounded by evidence of my family's betrayal, my phone buzzed with a text from an unexpected source, my cousin Marcus. Marcus was Uncle Frank's eldest son who'd moved to Seattle 5 years ago after his own falling out with the family. We'd been close as kids, but distance and family politics had gradually eroded our relationship. His message was simple. Heard about last night. Can we talk? I called him immediately, desperate for a friendly voice. Dorothy, Marcus said warmly. I've been watching the family dynamics from a distance for years, and last night was absolutely disgusting. You heard about the housewarming party. Dad told me everything. The planned car celebration, the group chat exclusion, all of it. I'm furious on your behalf. Marcus explained that he'd left Portland specifically because of similar favoritism issues with his younger brother Trevor. The family had consistently supported Trevor's impractical artistic pursuits while criticizing Marcus for being too focused on material success when he'd worked hard to build a successful legal career. It's the same pattern Dorothy. The responsible kid gets labeled as selfish and materialistic, while the irresponsible kid gets endless support and excuses. I thought I was imagining the favoritism. You weren't imagining anything. I've been watching them treat you and Madison differently for years. It's textbook scapegoat versus golden child dynamics. Marcus offered to help me document the financial disparity between Madison's and my treatment. Together, we spent 2 hours on a video call creating a detailed spreadsheet, tracking every gift loan payment and support each of us had received from the family over the past 7 years. Madison's side of the spreadsheet was extensive college tuition assistance, apartment deposits, car insurance payments, credit card bailouts, vacation funding, and now the Mercedes co-signing. We calculated that she'd received approximately $68,000 in direct financial support. My side of the spreadsheet was nearly empty: a $100 graduation gift, a $50 birthday check last year, and a $25 Christmas gift card. Total family financial support $175 over 7 years. This is insane, Marcus said, staring at our completed spreadsheet. They've given Madison almost $70,000 while you've gotten basically nothing. But they always told me I was too independent to need help. That's manipulation, Dorothy. They created a narrative where your competence justifies their neglect, while Madison's incompetence justifies their support. Marcus explained that he worked in family law and saw these dynamics regularly in divorce and estate cases. He warned me that the favoritism pattern would likely continue and escalate, especially regarding inheritance and future family decisions. You need to protect yourself legally and emotionally, he said. Document everything, limit your financial exposure, and prepare for the possibility that this behavior will never change. Marcus also offered to fly down for moral support if I decided to confront the family directly. You shouldn't face this alone, he said. Someone needs to witness their responses and support your version of events. The next day, Uncle Frank called me with additional information about the family group chat conversations. Dorothy, there's more you need to know, Frank said hesitantly. Your mother has been orchestrating anti-Dorothy campaigns for years. Frank explained that Mom felt threatened by my independence and success. She viewed my achievements as implicit criticism of Madison's lack of direction and worried that I was making the family look bad by highlighting how little progress Madison had made. Carol has been telling people that you don't need support because you're naturally capable, while Madison needs constant help because she's sensitive and artistic. Frank revealed that Madison had actively encouraged the favoritism by constantly telling our parents that I didn't need or want family support. She'd positioned herself as fragile and requiring assistance while portraying me as cold and self-sufficient. Madison told your parents that you bragged about not needing help and preferred to handle everything independently. She made it sound like you looked down on people who needed family support. I never said anything like that. I know you didn't, but Madison convinced everyone that your independence was arrogance rather than necessity. Frank also shared more details about the Christmas exclusion plan. Mom and Dad intended to host rotating holidays at different family members' homes, specifically to avoid my house. They'd convinced themselves that my home was too small and formal for proper family gatherings, even though it was actually larger than most family members' houses. They're planning to exclude you from Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, and probably birthdays, too. Carol thinks it will teach you about family priorities versus material priorities. The most shocking revelation came when Frank played me a recorded phone conversation between my parents from last week. Dorothy's success is making Madison feel inadequate. Mom's voice said clearly, "We need to find ways to build Madison up without Dorothy overshadowing her constantly." Dad responded, "Maybe if Dorothy faced some disappointments, she'd develop more empathy for people who struggle more than she does." Exactly. The housewarming party situation should help her realize that family relationships require humility and consideration. She's been so focused on impressing people that she's forgotten how to connect with people. They genuinely believed that systematically excluding and humiliating me would improve my character and make me a better family member. Frank apologized repeatedly for participating in their plans. "I should have warned you weeks ago, but I was afraid of causing family drama." "You're warning me now. That's what matters." Frank offered to support me in any confrontation with the family. He'd also started questioning whether Trevor and I had been treated fairly compared to Madison and his own younger son. "This pattern isn't healthy for anyone," Frank admitted. "Madison isn't learning real-world skills because she doesn't have to. You're being punished for being responsible. The family dynamics are completely backwards." Marcus called me again that evening after talking to his father. Dad filled me in on the Christmas exclusion plan and the recorded conversations. "Dorothy, this is psychological abuse." "It doesn't feel like abuse. It just feels like disappointment." Systematic exclusion, public humiliation, coordinated campaigns to damage your reputation, and financial discrimination based on fabricated character flaws. That's emotional abuse. Marcus encouraged me to consider my options carefully. I could continue accepting the family's treatment and hope it eventually improved. I could try to address the issues privately with individual family members, or I could take a more decisive approach and demand accountability for their behavior. Whatever you decide, I'll support you completely, but you deserve better than this, and they need to understand that their behavior has consequences. For the first time in days, I felt like I wasn't completely alone in this situation. Marcus and Frank had witnessed the family's behavior and confirmed that my perceptions were accurate. They'd provided evidence and support, and they were offering to help me figure out how to respond. The question now was whether I wanted to keep trying to earn love from people who seemed determined not to give it, or whether I was ready to demand the respect I'd always deserved. Over the next 3 days, I developed a comprehensive plan with Marcus and Uncle Frank's help. Instead of reacting emotionally or trying to argue with individual family members, I decided to document everything systematically and present the evidence in a way that couldn't be dismissed or minimized. Marcus flew down from Seattle on Friday evening, and we spent Saturday morning organizing all the evidence into a clear, factual presentation. We created a timeline of events, compiled financial records, saved screenshots of social media posts and group chat messages, and prepared copies of recorded conversations. The evidence was overwhelming when organized chronologically. It showed a clear pattern of favoritism that had escalated over 7 years, culminating in the deliberately planned housewarming party sabotage. Everything was documented with dates, amounts, and specific quotes from family members. I also met with my HR department proactively following Marcus's legal advice. I explained to Linda that a family member had been spreading false information about my workplace behavior and mental health. I provided context about the house purchase and family conflicts, requesting documentation of any complaints or rumors to protect my career. "I appreciate you bringing this to my attention," Linda said. "Your performance has been excellent, and I want to ensure that personal conflicts don't affect your professional reputation here." Linda assured me that she'd address any future calls from family members by explaining that personal information about employees couldn't be discussed with outside parties. She also offered to document our conversation in case workplace issues arose later. On Saturday afternoon, I took decisive action to protect my financial independence. I closed any shared accounts with family members, removed them as emergency contacts from all personal and professional documents, and updated my insurance beneficiaries to reflect my current relationships rather than default family designations. I also calculated my complete financial independence from any family support. The spreadsheet Marcus and I created showed that I'd been entirely self-supporting for 7 years, while Madison had received massive ongoing assistance. This financial independence gave me leverage because I didn't need anything from them that they could withhold as punishment. Sunday morning, I sent individual text messages to each family member requesting a family meeting at my house that evening. I kept the messages simple and non-accusatory. "I'd like to discuss last weekend's events with everyone together. Can we meet at my place at 7 tonight to clear the air?" Most family members responded positively, probably assuming I wanted to apologize for my attitude about the housewarming situation. Only Madison seemed hesitant, texting back, "Is this really necessary? I thought we could just move past this silly misunderstanding." Her response confirmed that she understood the situation wasn't a misunderstanding, but was hoping to avoid accountability. Marcus arrived early Sunday evening to provide moral support. We set up recording equipment in my living room, which was legal since the meeting was taking place on my property. I wanted documentation of their responses to my evidence presentation. At 6:50, I received a group text from Mom that made my blood boil. "Family change of plans. We're hosting Madison's 6-month car anniversary celebration tonight instead. Dorothy. You're welcome to join us at our house if you'd like to celebrate your sister's continued success with her beautiful Mercedes." I stared at that message in complete disbelief. Even when directly confronted with evidence of their pattern, they were doubling down by creating another competing event to undermine my attempt at family communication. "They just proved your point perfectly," Marcus observed, reading over my shoulder. "They're so committed to this pattern that they can't even break it when you're trying to address it directly." I texted back, "I'll be proceeding with our planned meeting here as scheduled. Anyone who would prefer to attend Madison's car anniversary party instead is welcome to make that choice." Frank responded immediately, "I'll be at Dorothy's. This conversation is important." Everyone else ignored my message and went to Madison's event. At 7 o'clock, only Marcus, Frank, and I sat in my living room. The empty space felt symbolic, but not defeating this time. Their absence was evidence, not abandonment. "What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. I looked around my beautiful house, finally understanding that the problem wasn't my timing, my attitude, or my approach. The problem was that these people had decided I didn't deserve their respect, and no amount of accommodation or improvement would change that fundamental decision. I'm going to create a comprehensive video response explaining everything I decided. They've shown me exactly who they are, and I believe them. Marcus and Frank helped me set up professional lighting and audio equipment. I spent 2 hours recording a detailed video message that laid out the timeline of favoritism, the financial disparities, the coordinated exclusion planning, and the evidence of deliberate cruelty. In the video, I spoke calmly and factually about each piece of evidence. I didn't yell or cry or accuse anyone of deliberately trying to hurt me. I simply presented the documentation and explained how their behavior had affected my life and my perspective on family relationships. I've spent 7 years working to earn respect and support that was never available to me, I said into the camera. I've tried to be understanding about different treatment, hoping that my achievements would eventually merit equal consideration. But the evidence shows that the disparity isn't about my performance or my attitude. It's about a fundamental decision that Madison deserves family support, while I don't. I explained my new boundaries clearly. Future relationships with family members would require acknowledgement of their behavior and genuine apology for the deliberate cruelty. I wouldn't accept gaslighting, minimization, or attempts to rewrite history. I'm not asking anyone to choose between Madison and me, I concluded. I'm asking for basic respect and consideration. If that's not available, I'll invest my emotional energy in relationships with people who value my presence and celebrate my achievements. The video felt powerful and healing to create. For the first time in my life, I was stating my perspective clearly without apologizing for my success or minimizing their behavior to protect their feelings. Monday morning, I sent the video privately to each family member along with a detailed document containing all the evidence we'd compiled. I didn't post anything publicly or try to shame anyone on social media. This was about setting boundaries and demanding accountability, not public humiliation. The responses revealed exactly who these people really were when faced with documented evidence of their behavior. Madison called within an hour, initially angry and defensive. "Dorothy, this video is completely dramatic and unfair. We didn't deliberately plan anything to hurt you." "Madison, I have screenshots of group chat messages where you specifically requested celebrating your car on my housewarming weekend, because it would be funny to see who got more attention." Her tone shifted to tearful manipulation. "I was just feeling insecure about always being in your shadow. You're so successful at everything, and I never get recognition for anything I accomplish. Madison, you've received almost $70,000 in family support over the past 7 years. You've been the center of attention at countless family gatherings. How exactly have you been in my shadow? Well, you make everything look so easy. Mom and Dad always talk about how independent and capable you are. I felt like I had to do something special to get the same kind of attention. So you decided to sabotage my housewarming party." Madison broke down, completely admitting that she'd felt jealous of my house purchase and encouraged the family's favoritism because she enjoyed being the preferred daughter. She apologized repeatedly, but couldn't explain why she'd thought deliberate cruelty was an appropriate response to her insecurity. "I'll do anything to fix this," she sobbed. "Please don't cut me out of your life." Madison, fixing this requires acknowledging what you did and committing to treating me with respect going forward. It also requires you to stop encouraging Mom and Dad's favoritism. She agreed to everything, but I could tell she was more concerned about consequences than genuinely understanding why her behavior was wrong. Mom and Dad took 3 days to respond, and their initial reaction was pure anger and denial. Dad called demanding, "I take down that ridiculous video and stop airing family business to outsiders." "Dad, I sent the video privately to family members only, and the business I'm airing is your documented behavior toward me. You're twisting everything to make yourself look like a victim. We've always treated you and Madison equally. I have spreadsheets showing a $70,000 difference in financial support. I have recordings of you planning to exclude me from Christmas. How is that equal treatment?" Mom got on the phone and tried a different approach, claiming I'd misunderstood their intentions and taken everything too personally. "Mom, you recorded phone conversations discussing how to humble me and teach me character lessons through exclusion. What did I misunderstand?" "Well, we thought you were becoming too focused on material things instead of family relationships." "So you decided to damage my family relationships to teach me about family relationships?" The conversation continued for an hour with them cycling through denial, minimization, and blame shifting. They couldn't directly address the evidence because it was too comprehensive and damning. Finally, I set an ultimatum. "I need you to acknowledge what you did, apologize genuinely, and commit to treating me with the same respect and support you give Madison. If you can't do that, we don't have a relationship moving forward." Marcus posted supportive comments about my video on his social media, explaining toxic family dynamics and praising my courage in setting boundaries. His public support encouraged several other family members to reach out privately. Cousin Brian called to apologize for participating in the mockery and exclusion. "I didn't really think about how cruel it was until I saw all the evidence laid out. I'm sorry, Dorothy." Aunt Jennifer also apologized, admitting she'd been following Carol's lead without considering whether the treatment was fair. "Your mother made it sound like you needed character correction, but looking at everything together, it's obvious we were just being mean." Uncle Frank became my strongest family ally, sharing my video with extended family members and encouraging them to reconsider their participation in the favoritism pattern. Several relatives expressed shock at the documented evidence and committed to treating me with more respect. 3 weeks after sending the video, my parents finally acknowledged their behavior and offered genuine apologies. They admitted they'd been threatened by my independence and success, worried that my achievements made Madison look bad by comparison. We realize now that we were trying to solve Madison's insecurity by limiting your success instead of helping Madison develop her own confidence, Mom said during a tearful phone conversation. Dad added, "We thought if you faced some disappointments, you'd be more understanding of Madison's struggles, but we ended up punishing you for being successful, which was completely backwards." They committed to treating us equally going forward, including equal financial support and equal emotional attention. They also agreed to family therapy to address the underlying favoritism patterns. Madison started individual therapy to work on her jealousy and entitlement issues. She slowly began taking more responsibility for her life and stopped expecting constant family bailouts. 6 months later, I hosted a second housewarming party for friends, colleagues, and family members who had supported me through the confrontation. My house filled with people who genuinely celebrated my achievements and valued my presence. Marcus flew down for the party and brought several Seattle friends who'd become part of my chosen family. Uncle Frank attended with genuine enthusiasm, bringing homemade appetizers and staying late to help clean up. My parents came and behaved respectfully, following through on their commitment to change their approach. Madison attended and gave a public apology to my gathered friends, acknowledging her role in the original party's sabotage and expressing genuine pride in my homeownership achievement. The party felt completely different from the original housewarming disaster. This time, my house filled with laughter, appreciation, and authentic connection. People complimented my decorating choices, asked thoughtful questions about the home buying process, and celebrated my 7 years of hard work and dedication. Standing in my kitchen surrounded by friends and family who truly valued my success, I realized I'd learned the most important lesson of my adult life. Family isn't defined by blood relation, but by mutual respect and support. I'd spent years trying to earn love from people who were determined not to give it, when I should have been investing my emotional energy in relationships with people who celebrated my achievements rather than resenting them. The house that had once felt like a monument to my isolation now felt like the foundation for a chosen family of people who understood that success should be celebrated, not punished. I'd fought for my right to be treated with respect, and I'd won something much more valuable than my original family's approval. I'd won the knowledge that I deserved better and the courage to demand it. My childhood family eventually rebuilt relationships with me based on genuine respect and consideration. But even if they hadn't changed, I'd learned that I could create the loving family environment I'd always wanted by surrounding myself with people who shared my values about support, celebration, and mutual respect. Sometimes fighting back means walking away from people who don't value you. Sometimes it means demanding better treatment and refusing to accept less. And sometimes it means discovering that your chosen family can provide the love and support that your biological family never could. The most satisfying victory wasn't proving that I'd been treated unfairly. It was realizing that I didn't need their approval to know my own worth, and I didn't need their presence to build a beautiful life filled with people who genuinely cared about my happiness and success. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace with toxic family members or standing up for your own worth? How did you find the courage to demand the respect you deserved? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you've handled difficult family dynamics and whether setting boundaries improved your relationships or helped you build better ones. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help others find it who might be struggling with similar family situations. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming relationship challenges and building healthier connections. And please share this with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve respect and celebration, not punishment for their achievements. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting others who are learning to value themselves enough to demand better treatment. Remember, you don't have to earn love from people who are determined not to give it. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk toward people who celebrate your success instead of resenting it.